You have 72 hours to demolish that illegal structure, or I'm having the county condemn your entire property. Rebecca Mitchell's voice cut through the Arizona heat as her manicured finger jabbed toward my heat, half-built workshop. The Phoenix sun beat down at 112 degrees as I wiped sweat from my forehead, staring at this woman who just made the most catastrophic mistake of her life. This industrial eyesore violates every community standard we've established. Frankly, people like you don't belong in Sonoran Heights. More luxury vehicles arrived, kicking up dust. Rebecca stood there in her $400 Lululemon outfit, waving legal papers, surrounded by angry neighbors. She thought she controlled everything. What she didn't know was that my late aunt had left me something far more valuable than 8 acres of cactus and rock. She'd left me the one thing Rebecca's $75 million resort deal absolutely required and couldn't get without me. She was threatening lawsuits, criminal charges, property seizure. Her lawyer, some corporate shark named Bradley Harrington, kept checking his Rolex like this was already finished. They were so confident, so absolutely certain they'd crush me within the month. Little did they know, I had information that would flip this entire situation completely. Let me back up and tell you how this catastrophe started. My name's Derek Walsh, 43, recently divorced electrician who inherited 8 acres of Sonoran desert from my Aunt Patricia in March 2025. After 2 years of custody battles in a cramped Tempe apartment, this land felt like redemption, a place to build something meaningful and prove to my 13-year-old son Tyler that his dad wasn't a complete wreck. Aunt Patricia was the family mystery vanished into the Arizona desert in 1983, showed up at Christmas smelling like motor oil, always cryptic about her land. Most relatives dismissed her as the weird aunt. When her estate attorney called saying I'd inherited her property, I figured she wanted to give me a fresh start. The land was stunning, ancient saguaro cacti, endless sky, the sharp scent of sage. There was a concrete foundation where Patricia had started building, plus a metal workshop that looked frontier era. I liquidated what remained of my $401k, gave notice at the electrical contractor, and started building a modest workshop and tiny home. Nothing fancy, just honest space where Tyler could visit weekends and watch his father building something worthwhile instead of drowning in bourbon and self-pity. The rhythm of nail gun against lumber, the satisfying scream of circular saw through plywood after years of lawyers and court hearings, physical work felt like washing blood off my hands. Day 5 of construction, she appeared. Rebecca Mitchell emerged from a pearl-white Tesla, like corporate royalty. Her designer shoes crunched against rocky ground with military precision, her perfume clashing with desert air. "Excuse me, are you the individual responsible for this unauthorized industrial construction?" I set down my framing hammer, noting how she pronounced individual with contempt. "Derek Walsh, building on my property, and you are?" Rebecca Mitchell, Sonoran Heights HOA president. She tapped her iPad with theatrical authority. "This construction violates multiple community covenants. No architectural review, no environmental assessment, no aesthetic compliance whatsoever. Frankly, this industrial approach threatens property values throughout our community." I surveyed pristine desert stretching to the McDowell Mountains. What community? All I see is cactus. The Sonoran Heights HOA governs all residential properties within our jurisdiction. She turned her screen toward me, displaying a map with boundaries in aggressive red. "Your Aunt Patricia signed these restrictive covenants when we organized 9 months ago. You inherited her legal obligations." 9 months ago? Aunt Patricia died 11 months ago in December 2024. She handed me a cease and desist order demanding immediate construction halt plus an invoice for $4,800 in violation penalties. Remove all materials within 72 hours. Daily fines begin at $1,000, doubling every 7 days. We take our community standards extremely seriously, Mr. Walsh. Then she delivered the real venom. Let me be frank. Her eyes swept over my work clothes and calloused hands with disgust. This isn't the caliber of community where people in your situation typically succeed. I'd hate for your son to be embarrassed. Custody arrangements can be so fragile. The mention of Tyler detonated something cold in my chest. This woman had investigated me, knew about my divorce, my struggles, my limited custody. Any scandal could give my ex-wife ammunition to restrict that further. Are you threatening my family? Rebecca's smile was sharp as sun reflecting off broken glass. I'm offering practical guidance. Some battles aren't worth fighting, especially when you're clearly outmatched in every meaningful way. Intelligent people know when to walk away. She climbed into her Tesla, pausing with the door open. 72 hours, Mr. Walsh. Make the smart choice. Or don't. Watching people destroy themselves through stubbornness is always educational. As her vehicle disappeared toward the gated community, Aunt Patricia's final words echoed, "Don't let the bastards grind you down, Derek. That land has something they'll kill for. The papers are in the workshop foundation. When you need them, you'll know." I'd thought she was rambling from morphine. Now I wondered what the hell she'd meant. I stared at the cease and desist order, then at my half-built workshop. Rebecca didn't waste her 72-hour ultimatum. She returned the next morning with legal reinforcements and unshakable confidence. A dusty Honda Accord pulled up behind her Tesla and outstepped the most depressing excuse for legal counsel I'd witnessed. Martin Brennan looked like he'd gotten his law degree from a cereal box cheap suit with visible stains, scuffed briefcase held together with duct tape. "Mr. Walsh," Rebecca announced with courtroom drama, "you're being served with official legal documentation. Cease all construction immediately and prepare for substantial financial consequences." Brennan fumbled through papers with shaking hands. "Pursuant to Sonoran Heights HOA restrictive covenants, you owe $23,500 in retroactive violation penalties. Furthermore, you never received proper HOA disclosure documents during property transfer, which under Arizona statute 33-1806 creates serious questions about your ownership validity. $23,000 for building on my own land? I'll review these with my attorney," I said evenly. Rebecca's laugh cracked. "You can't afford an attorney." "Mr. Walsh, your financial records are public from your divorce proceedings. I've reviewed them thoroughly. Save yourself the humiliation." The second they drove off, I headed straight to the Maricopa County Recorder's office. Maria Rodriguez pulled up records, while burnt coffee filled the cramped office. Sonoran Heights, HOA. Incorporated the 28th of February, 2025. She looked up sharply. "When did your aunt pass?" "The 8th of December, 2024. 3 months after her death." Maria's expression hardened. "Let me pull the covenant documents." The scanned signature looked nothing like Aunt Patricia's distinctive handwriting. Patricia wrote with elaborate flourishes from Catholic school. This signature was crude, blocky, obviously forged. "Maria, this is forgery. That's not her signature." Maria leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Mr. Walsh, I shouldn't say this, but my cousin Rosa works in county planning. She mentioned Sonoran Heights getting special treatment on development permits, and the deputy recorder who filed these covenants? That's Thomas Caldwell, Rebecca Mitchell's brother-in-law." The pieces started connecting. "Can you print everything? HOA formation documents, member listings, covenant filings, property boundaries?" The documents revealed a criminal conspiracy. The HOA boundaries were drawn like a noose around my 8 acres, 60% of their total land area, calculated entrapment. Every HOA member was either related to Rebecca Mitchell, employed by her husband's company, or owed them favors. Organized crime with a clipboard. I'd watched enough legal dramas during my divorce insomnia to know that dead people can't sign contracts, and you definitely can't retroactively bind a deceased person to agreements created months after they die. Arizona law was crystal clear this was criminal fraud. Time to lawyer up properly. I found Jennifer Martinez through 5-star Google reviews. Destroys predatory HOAs. Takes no prisoners. Made my board president cry in court. Her Scottsdale office smelled like expensive coffee and hard-won victories. "This is legally impossible," Jennifer said. Spreading my documents across her glass table, her sharp eyes moved rapidly across the forged signature. "You cannot retroactively bind a deceased person to covenants formed after death. That's forgery, fraud, conspiracy, and probably RICO violations." She leaned back, fingers steepled like a chess master. "I've destroyed corrupt HOAs before, but this is brazen even by Arizona standards. What are our options? We're filing countersuits immediately. Harassment, fraudulent misrepresentation, forgery of legal documents, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Plus, I'm reporting the forged signature to the county attorney and Arizona Attorney General's Public Corruption Unit. Rebecca Mitchell just committed multiple felonies, and she gift-wrapped the evidence. But Rebecca wasn't slowing her assault. 2 days later, she convened an emergency HOA meeting naturally without informing me. My neighbor Luis Mendoza attended and called afterward, his voice tight with concern. "Derek, brother, you need to know what happened. Rebecca's got people terrified." She's claiming you're some dangerous drifter with a violent criminal record who's going to destroy everyone's property values and possibly harm their children. She showed photos of your workshop, calling it an unlicensed industrial facility for illegal activities. Got people convinced you're manufacturing drugs or running some criminal operation. Then came the digital warfare that would later become federal. Rebecca created a Sonoran Heights Community Safety Watch Facebook group, posting my photos stolen from my old contractor website alongside warnings about dangerous criminals threatening family safety and home values. The comment section became a cesspool within hours. Get this, predator out before someone gets hurt. My children aren't safe with this criminal in our neighborhood. Sheriff's Department needs to investigate now. But Rebecca's arrogance planted the seeds of her destruction. In her rush to prove the HOA had financial resources for legal warfare, she publicly posted their financial statements on Facebook. Those numbers told a story she didn't want analyzed. $420,000 collected in special assessments over 9 months from just 14 households. That's $30,000 per family, an astronomical amount for an HOA with no pool, no clubhouse, no shared facilities. The line items were even more suspicious. Emergency road repairs, $127,000. Groundwater contamination remediation, $86,000. Legal defense fund, $93,000. Security infrastructure upgrades, $71,000. Jennifer nearly choked on her latte when I showed her the Facebook evidence. She just publicly documented massive financial fraud. Rebecca handed us a federal case on a silver platter. The pressure campaign intensified. County inspectors appeared at my property with suspicious frequency, writing citations for violations that didn't exist. One inspector, Carlos Rodriguez, pulled me aside. Listen, man, off the record, orders came from way above my pay grade. Someone with serious political juice is pushing hard to shut you down. This isn't normal procedure. As Rodriguez's truck disappeared, I realized Rebecca had escalated beyond civil harassment into government corruption, using taxpayer-funded officials to settle personal vendettas. But corrupt officials leave paper trails, and paper trails lead to federal investigators who don't care about local political connections. That evening, I started digging into Rebecca's connections. Gregory Mitchell, Rebecca's husband, was a major commercial developer, and he donated $287,000 to Sheriff Tom Davidson's last election campaign, the largest single contribution. Rebecca thought she was playing neighborhood politics, while I was struggling with basic property rights. Rebecca's next escalation came at 3:17 a.m., shattering metal and gasoline stench burning through my sleep. I stumbled outside to find my construction site destroyed. Someone had sledgehammered my lumber pile, scattering 2x4s. My generator lay on its side, fuel soaking into sand. Roofing nails glittered across my access road, strategically positioned to shred any tire. My toolbox was pried open. $3,000 worth of tools missing. The message was crystal clear. Rebecca was done pretending this was a legal dispute. This was war, and she was willing to commit felonies to win. By sunrise, I discovered my truck sitting on 4 slashed tires, and an anonymous EPA complaint claiming I was destroying protected Sonoran desert tortoise habitat. The protected habitat was my own property, which had been surveyed and cleared before Aunt Patricia ever bought it in 1983. But bureaucratic investigations take months to resolve, and Rebecca knew paralysis was as effective as victory. Around 10 a.m., vehicles started appearing at strategic points along my access road, not blocking it completely, but positioned just inconveniently enough to make entry and exit require careful navigation. When I approached the drivers with my phone recording, they recited rehearsed lines. We're concerned citizens exercising our constitutional right to utilize public roadways for lawful purposes. Then came the surveillance intimidation. By noon, I counted 4 drones hovering over my property, obviously recording my every movement. Cameras appeared, mounted on vehicles, 2 lenses pointed directly at my workshop. Around 2 p.m., a massive spotlight got installed on the nearest property, positioned to shine directly into my workshop windows once darkness fell. The message was clear. We're watching you, constantly. Then, official-looking warnings sprouted overnight along desert roads. Danger, hazmat site, authorized personnel only. Warning, contaminated area, protective equipment required. They looked legitimate enough to fool my building supplier, who called in a panic. Derek, I got 3 customers asking if I'm licensed for contaminated site delivery. Word spreading your land has illegal toxic dumping. I can't afford to lose contracts, brother. I'm really sorry. Rebecca had weaponized my business relationships, turning suppliers into collateral damage. But sabotage meant desperation. And desperate people make traceable mistakes. Jennifer and I spent the next 2 afternoons at the recorder's office, following financial breadcrumbs, while Maria quietly helped us access records most people never think to request. You're going to want to see this, Maria said, pulling up development agreements filed with county planning in March 2025. This was filed quietly, no public hearing. Desert Paradise Resort and Spa had submitted conceptual plans for a $75 million luxury development. The proposed location showed my 8 acres highlighted in red as the critical centerpiece parcel spa facilities with mountain views, championship golf course elevation, helicopter pad access. According to the development agreement, construction couldn't commence without acquiring all necessary property rights within the designated resort corridor, including surface rights, water rights, mineral rights, and access easements. My land wasn't just in Rebecca's way. It was the golden key to unlocking $75 million. Look at this consulting agreement, Jennifer said. Desert Paradise Development LLC paid someone $650,000 for community relations facilitation and property acquisition consulting services. Maria leaned in. That's not consulting. That's a bribe with corporate letterhead. And look at the LLC registration. The managing member is listed as GMT Holdings. You want to guess what GMT stands for? Gregory Mitchell Trust? Exactly. Rebecca's husband is getting paid $650,000 to deliver your property to his own development company. This is self-dealing, fraud, and probably a dozen other crimes. Suddenly, Rebecca's aggressive timeline made perfect sense. She wasn't just collecting HOA fees, she was earning a massive commission for delivering my property to developers who were essentially paying her husband to acquire land through harassment and intimidation. Every day I held out cost her hundreds of thousands. Every week of delay risked the whole deal collapsing. That night, I installed a comprehensive security system using skills from my electrical background, motion sensor cameras with night vision, cloud backup storage, perimeter alerts. If Rebecca wanted to continue her criminal activities, she'd do it in 4K high-definition color. I didn't have to wait long. At 1:47 a.m., motion alerts exploded. A silver pickup crept down my access road, headlights off. The driver in a black hoodie poured liquid from a gas can near my workshop. My cameras captured everything, including the moment he looked into the lens with pure panic. Brandon Mitchell, Rebecca's 26-year-old son. Instead of just pouring gas and leaving, he pulled out road flares and a lighter. Attempted murder since I was sleeping 50 yards away. My exterior floods activated automatically, transforming midnight into noon with 5,000 watts. Brandon screamed, dropped the lighter, and sprinted for his truck, while my cameras captured his face, license plate, the gas can with fingerprints, and the road flares he'd abandoned. I called 911 immediately. This is Derek Walsh at 47820 East Sunset Ridge Road. I just caught someone on security camera attempting to set fire to my property with gasoline and road flares. He fled in a silver Ford F-150 license plate. I read off the number. Within 20 minutes, I heard sirens. But it wasn't just one patrol car, it was 4 vehicles, including Sheriff Tom Davidson himself. Davidson stepped out looking less like someone responding to a crime and more like someone caught between political loyalty and legal reality. Mr. Walsh, you called in an attempted arson? Watch this. I pulled up the footage, and Davidson's expression cycled through several variations as he watched Brandon Mitchell, son of his major campaign donor's wife, committing felonies in 4K clarity. That's Brandon Mitchell, Davidson said quietly, his jaw clenched. Yes, sir. He poured accelerant around my workspace and was about to ignite it when my security lights activated. The gas can and road flares are still where he dropped them, should have excellent fingerprints. Davidson looked at me for a long moment, some internal calculation happening. Then his expression hardened with resolve. I'll handle this personally. And Mr. Walsh? Off the record? I'm sorry. I've been getting pressure from certain parties regarding your property situation. Pressure I should have recognized as inappropriate. That ends tonight. By dawn, Brandon Mitchell was in custody, charged with attempted arson, criminal trespass, criminal damage, and attempted murder. The gas can had his fingerprints. The security footage was irrefutable. And suddenly, Rebecca's narrative about me being the dangerous criminal started crumbling. But I wasn't finished digging through Rebecca's empire. Jennifer's forensic accountant friend spent 3 days analyzing the HOA's public financial filings. His findings were devastating. Every expense is fraudulent, Robert explained. Road repairs billed at triple market rate for work never completed. Environmental services from a shell company with no employees, owned by Gregory Mitchell's brother. The security infrastructure upgrades were supposedly installed by Southwest Security Solutions, another shell company owned by Rebecca's cousin. No permits were ever filed. No equipment was actually installed. Jennifer leaned forward. So, she's been systematically looting the HOA treasury while simultaneously positioning herself for the resort commission. She's triple-dipping stealing from neighbors today while earning acquisition fees tomorrow. Exactly, and the amounts qualify this as federal wire fraud. We're looking at Title 18 violations that carry 10 to 20 years in federal prison. As I reviewed Brandon's arson footage that evening, watching sunset paint the McDowell Mountains in shades of copper, I realized something crucial about Rebecca's psychology. She wasn't just greedy, she was trapped. The resort deal probably had firm deadlines, and every day I remained meant she risked losing the entire payday. The paperwork arrived Tuesday morning at 6 a.m., a petition for emergency psychiatric evaluation and involuntary commitment. Rebecca was claiming I was displaying severe psychological instability, paranoid delusions with violent ideation, and making credible threats of mass casualty violence. The smell of fresh legal documents mixed with my coffee as I read through 28 pages of creative fiction. According to Rebecca's sworn statement, I had been obsessively surveilling neighbors with military-grade electronic equipment, making specific verbal threats about burning down homes with families inside, exhibiting textbook symptoms of paranoid schizophrenia, stockpiling what appear to be explosive materials, displaying classic warning signs of an individual planning mass violence. She'd included witness statements from 4 HOA members claiming I'd approached them after dark, ranting incoherently about conspiracies and threatening to make everyone pay. The petition requested immediate psychiatric evaluation with possible commitment to a secure facility for up to 6 months. By 9 a.m., the situation escalated beyond paperwork. A convoy of vehicles appeared at my access road, 6 pickup trucks, all occupied, all with occupants holding binoculars and cameras, positioned in a way that screamed paramilitary intimidation. Rebecca had learned from her son's arrest. No guns meant no obvious felonies. But the message was identical. Armed citizens protecting their community from a dangerous threat. Luis called with worse intelligence. Derek, brother, Sheriff Davidson is under massive pressure to serve that psychiatric warrant with a full tactical response. Gregory Mitchell is calling in every favor, claiming you're armed and dangerous. My stomach dropped. I'd read too many stories about wellness checks gone catastrophically wrong, SWAT teams treating people like enemy combatants, situations escalating from paperwork to body bags. Luis, I'm not mentally ill. This is fabricated to justify property seizure. I know, brother, but Sheriff Davidson's in a tough spot. Gregory Mitchell basically owns his campaign finances. Just be careful. But Rebecca's psychiatric gambit contained a fatal flaw that Jennifer's paralegal discovered within 3 hours. The petition required supporting documentation from licensed mental health professionals. Rebecca had submitted a psychological evaluation from Dr. Marcus Pemberton, MD, PhD, board-certified psychiatrist, claiming he'd personally evaluated me and diagnosed antisocial personality disorder with violent ideation requiring immediate involuntary commitment. The evaluation was detailed, clinical, convincing, signed by Dr. Pemberton on official letterhead from Scottsdale Psychiatric Associates. Jennifer's paralegal, Sarah Kim, made 2 phone calls that destroyed Rebecca's entire scheme. First call to the Arizona Medical Board. Dr. Pemberton's license shows as active. Can you confirm his current practice location? Dr. Pemberton is currently on administrative leave, pending a medical board investigation for substance abuse issues. He hasn't seen patients in 4 months. Second call to Scottsdale Psychiatric Associates. I'm calling to verify a psychological evaluation allegedly conducted by Dr. Pemberton in April 2025. Dr. Pemberton hasn't been affiliated with our practice since February. He's been suspended by the medical board. Any evaluation claiming to be from him in April would be fraudulent. Jennifer's expression was somewhere between professional outrage and gleeful anticipation. Rebecca didn't just submit a questionable evaluation, she paid a suspended, substance-abusing psychiatrist to fabricate a psychological assessment on stolen letterhead. That's conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery, and about 6 other felonies. And Dr. Pemberton's bank records will show a payment from either Rebecca or Gregory Mitchell right before this evaluation appeared. That single desperate lie had elevated Rebecca's legal troubles, from civil fraud to federal document forgery and conspiracy crimes carrying up to 15 years in federal prison. "She's completely unraveling," Jennifer said. "This level of criminal recklessness suggests someone facing catastrophic financial exposure with a ticking clock." But Rebecca wasn't finished destroying herself. That afternoon, my ex-wife Melissa called, her voice shaking. "Derek, what the hell is happening? Tyler's friends are showing him Facebook posts claiming you're a registered sex offender." He locked himself in his room, crying. The words hit hard. "What posts?" "Some community safety group with your photo and warnings about sexual predators near elementary schools. Tyler's classmates are treating him like he's contaminated. He asked me if it's true, Derek. My son asked if his father is a sex offender." The thought of 13-year-old Tyler reading those lies, having friends pull away, believing his father might actually be a monster, my vision blurred with anger. "It's completely fabricated, Melissa. I'm fighting a corrupt HOA, trying to steal my land for a resort development. Everything online is defamation designed to pressure me." "Then fix IT. Fix it immediately, Derek. Some family court judges consider social media scandals detrimental to minors. This could affect your custody arrangement. Do you understand? This could cost you your son." After she hung up, I sat in Aunt Patricia's old workshop, surrounded by the smell of motor oil and decades of dust. This wasn't about property anymore. Rebecca had crossed the line into attacking my relationship with the only person who truly mattered. But her desperation had created an opportunity. False sex offender accusations weren't just defamation, they were federal crimes under Title 18 U.S.C. Section 2261, a criminal cyber harassment with penalties up to 5 years in federal prison. Rebecca had just upgraded her legal exposure from financial fraud to federal harassment crimes targeting a minor's relationship with his parent. That evening, Luis knocked with intelligence that began shifting the battlefield. "Derek, 4 HOA families have approached me privately. They're terrified of Rebecca, but starting to doubt everything. The treasurer, Patricia Donovan, has been asking uncomfortable questions about the finances. She's an accountant, and the numbers aren't adding up." He lowered his voice. "Patricia found invoices for contractors who don't have business licenses. Payments for projects never completed. She's been demanding a comprehensive audit, and Rebecca's been blocking it while making threats." "What kind of threats?" "Property assessment challenges. Code enforcement complaints. Even threatening to foreclose on people behind on the special assessments, which is half the neighborhood because nobody can actually afford 30 grand in 9 months. This gave me the counter strategy I needed. Can you quietly get Patricia in touch with Jennifer?" "Already done, brother. Patricia's meeting with Jennifer tomorrow morning. She's bringing every financial document she's been secretly copying for 2 months. But I wanted to hit Rebecca where it would hurt beyond legal consequences, her social standing. The next morning, I visited every business Rebecca's family owned or frequented. Armed with screenshots of her false sex offender posts, I had calm conversations with managers about their potential civil liability for supporting defamatory campaigns that falsely accused people of sex crimes. Small desert communities run on reputation. When the auto shop, grocery store, hardware store, gym, and country club all suddenly became too busy to serve the Mitchell family, word spread fast. By afternoon, Rebecca's own mother was calling her demanding explanations for why the entire family was being socially exiled from every business in the East Valley. The social pressure was building on Rebecca from multiple directions. Her son facing felony charges, her psychiatric scheme exposed as fraud, her financial crimes being documented, her social standing crumbling, and now her HOA treasurer preparing to cooperate with investigators. Rebecca had overextended across too many fronts: criminal harassment, financial fraud, government corruption, while her crimes were being documented by investigators who didn't care about her husband's political donations. The next morning, jackhammering through concrete in Aunt Patricia's workshop foundation, the drill bit hit something that wasn't steel. The metallic clang echoed. 6 inches below, I found a military-grade waterproof case, desert camouflage, and combination locked. Inside were thick folders, official seals, enough legal paperwork to choke a courtroom. But the document on top froze my hands. Certificate of Water Rights, priority date, the 15th of March, 1887. Underneath that, Sonoran Desert Water Company, sole owner, Patricia Ann Walsh. Established 1996. My heart hammered as I read through papers that rewrote everything I understood about this land. Aunt Patricia didn't just own 8 acres of desert. In 1996, she'd quietly purchased something far more valuable, the original water rights to the entire Sonoran Heights area, dating back to 1887 when Arizona was still a territory. These weren't modern water rights subject to current regulations. These were grandfathered senior water rights with absolute priority over every subsequent claim. The next document explained the devastating implications. In 2009, during the housing market collapse, the original developer who'd built Sonoran Heights went bankrupt. While everyone else was fleeing real estate, Aunt Patricia had purchased not just the water rights, but also the sole access easement to the entire development, the only legal road connecting all 49 houses to the county highway system. The developer had retained these rights separately from the home sales. When he went bankrupt, Patricia snapped them up for pennies on the dollar through her holding company. The homeowners owned their houses and the land directly beneath them, but they didn't own water rights or legal access to reach their homes. For 16 years, they'd been paying what they thought were standard utility fees, not realizing those payments were going to Sonoran Desert Water Company, owned by Patricia through a management company that obscured ultimate ownership. Every house in Sonoran Heights depended on these water rights and access easement to function. Without them, the properties were landlocked and couldn't receive water service, essentially worthless. And here's the part that made my pulse hammer. The development agreement for Desert Paradise Resort explicitly required all necessary water rights and access easements within the resort corridor before construction could begin. Rebecca's $75 million resort deal was completely impossible without the water rights and access easement I now owned. She'd been trying to steal my 8 acres through HOA fraud, not realizing the real obstacle wasn't my land, it was the water rights and easement that made the entire area developable. Without my cooperation, she couldn't build the resort. Without the resort, she didn't get her $650,000 commission, and she'd already spent that money, judging by the financial desperation driving her increasingly criminal behavior. The bank records in the case showed everything. Monthly water service fees flowing into Sonoran Desert Water Company accounts, access easement fees paid by the homeowners, property tax receipts for the water rights and easement, maintenance expenses for the water, infrastructure, and access road. Aunt Patricia had been the invisible utility provider for an entire community, collecting fees through a management company while letting people believe their water came from municipal sources. The documents were unquestionably legitimate, stamped with official territorial seals from 1887, verified through continuous chain of title, recorded with the Arizona Department of Water Resources, protected by federal interstate water compacts. These were senior appropriative water rights with absolute legal priority. I sat in Patricia's workshop chair, surrounded by old leather and carefully guarded secrets, holding papers that gave me complete control over Rebecca Mitchell's entire criminal scheme. I could shut off water to the entire development, legally. I could block access to all 49 homes by closing the easement. I could demand astronomical fees for continued service. I could sell these rights to Desert Paradise Resort for millions. I could destroy Rebecca's life the same way she tried to destroy mine. But Aunt Patricia's final words echoed, "Don't let the bastards grind you down." She hadn't said, "Grind them down first." There was wisdom in that distinction, a lesson about power and how to use it fairly rather than purely for revenge. And that difference would determine what kind of man I chose to be when holding the nuclear option. But first, Rebecca needed to understand exactly how thoroughly she'd miscalculated. And that understanding would come at Friday night's community meeting, the one she'd scheduled to have me declared a threat and forcibly removed. She thought she was setting a trap for me. "These are legally bulletproof," Jennifer said, examining the 1887 water certificate under her desk lamp. "Senior appropriative water rights with continuous chain of title, territorial priority, protected under federal interstate compacts. This is the kind of water law that makes attorneys salivate and developers weep." She pulled out her iPad and started mapping strategic options. Option 1. Reveal your water rights ownership immediately. Negotiate directly with Desert Paradise Resort. Sell them the rights for fair market value, probably $3.5 million. Clean, profitable. Option 2. Use the leverage to expose Rebecca's crimes while protecting innocent homeowners. Threaten to shut off water unless the HOA dissolves, Rebecca resigns, and criminal investigations proceed. Option 3. Complete nuclear option. Shut off water, close the access easement, force mass property devaluation, destroy Rebecca financially and socially. I thought about Tyler reading those sex offender posts, about my neighbors who'd been manipulated by Rebecca's lies, about Aunt Patricia choosing to keep this power hidden for decades. What about option 4? Expose Rebecca's criminal enterprise, offer the community a path forward that doesn't punish innocent families, and build something better. Jennifer's eyebrows rose. Explain your thinking. Rebecca's been stealing from these people while lying about my character. But most of her neighbors are just scared people who believe someone in authority. What if we expose the financial fraud, terminate her control, but offer longtime residents reasonable water and access fees with community ownership options? Turn this toxic situation into something that serves families. While Jennifer researched legal precedents, I brought in Patricia Donovan, the HOA treasurer who'd been asking dangerous questions. We met at a neutral coffee shop in Mesa. I've been suspicious about our books since February, Patricia confided over coffee. Her hands shook as she pulled out folders of documents she'd been secretly copying. Rebecca's been dodging every audit request while collecting unprecedented fees. We've paid $420,000 in special assessments in 9 months, but I can't find records of actual work performed. I slid photocopies of Rebecca's fraudulent invoices across the table shell companies, inflated billing, work never completed. She's been systematically stealing while positioning herself for a $650,000 commission from resort developers who need my water rights. Patricia's face went pale. She's been stealing from us while threatening families with foreclosure. But Derek, even if we expose her, how do we protect people who've invested everything in these homes? That's when I knew option 4 was right. I pulled out the water rights certificates and access easement documents. I own the water rights and access easement for the entire development, have since inheriting from my aunt. Without my cooperation, nobody can develop the resort, but also I control whether your homes have water and road access. Patricia's eyes widened. You could shut down the entire neighborhood. I could, but I won't. What I will do is offer fair water rates, community ownership options, and protection from Rebecca's fraud if the HOA cooperates with exposing her crimes. Over the next 2 days, Jennifer and I crafted a presentation that would accomplish multiple objectives. Expose Rebecca's criminal conspiracy, offer the community a sustainable path forward, and demonstrate that power could build rather than destroy. The legal documents were prepared in quadruplicate, stored in multiple secure locations, with copies already delivered to Arizona Attorney General's Public Corruption Unit, FBI White Collar Crime Division, IRS Criminal Investigation Division, County Attorney's Fraud Prosecution Team. I also contacted every local news outlet with a story that had everything journalists dream about. Wealthy HOA president stealing from neighbors while collecting developer bribes, falsely accusing innocent people of sex crimes, committing arson through her son. Channel 12's investigative reporter Sarah Bennett jumped on it. This story has everything: corruption, fraud, false accusations, water rights drama. This is Arizona political gold. When's the community meeting? Friday night, 7 p.m., Sonoran Heights Community Center. Rebecca called it as an emergency session to address the dangerous criminal element threatening our neighborhood. She's planning to have me declared mentally unstable and forcibly removed. Sarah's grin was pure predatory journalism. Wednesday afternoon brought unexpected reinforcements. Sheriff Tom Davidson called my cell directly. We met at a rest stop off Highway 60, desert stretching empty in all directions. I've been compromised, Davidson said without preamble. Gregory Mitchell donated $287,000 to my last campaign. When Rebecca started pressuring me about you, I didn't push back hard enough. I let political debts cloud my judgment. I appreciate the honesty, Sheriff. I'm not looking for forgiveness. I'm offering information and support. Gregory's been calling in favors with the county attorney, trying to get you charged with anything to justify seizing your property. But after his son got caught committing arson, I realized I've been played. I've been a tool in a criminal conspiracy. He handed me a thick envelope. These are copies of every complaint Rebecca and Gregory filed against you, Plus, recordings of Gregory's phone calls trying to pressure me into arresting you without cause. Consider it evidence for your legal team. Why help me now? Because I became a cop to protect people, not to serve as muscle for real estate scams. And because when this goes public, and it will, I want to be on the right side. I'll testify if needed. About the pressure, the complaints, all of it. Friday night's meeting wouldn't just expose her crimes. It would be the public collapse of everything she'd built on lies and theft. That evening, Tyler called, not crying this time, but angry in that teenage way. Dad, I did something, and I hope you're not mad. What'd you do, Ty? I recorded the kids at school talking about those fake posts. Then I sent the recordings to their parents with screenshots showing the posts came from Mrs. Mitchell's Facebook group. I told them if they kept spreading lies about my dad being a sex offender, we'd sue their families for defamation. Pride and concern warred in my chest. Ty, you can't threaten people. I didn't threaten. I stated legal facts. You taught me the difference. And Dad, 3 of those parents called Mom apologizing. They had no idea the posts were fabricated. That was brave, son. But be careful. I know, Dad, but I'm not letting that woman destroy you with lies. We're family. We fight back. After we hung up, I sat on my porch, watching sunset paint the McDowell Mountains in shades of fire. This battle wasn't just about property or money. It was about teaching my son that good people don't surrender to bullies, that truth matters more than comfort, that sometimes fighting back is the only moral choice. Friday morning arrived with ominous coordination sirens, helicopter rotors, and the kind of overwhelming law enforcement response that destroys political careers. I woke at 5:47 a.m. to thunderous rotor blades and radio chatter. Through my windows, I counted 3 news helicopters, 8 patrol vehicles, and what appeared to be Maricopa County Sheriff's Tactical Response Unit establishing a perimeter. My phone was exploding with missed calls from reporters. Mr. Walsh, how do you respond to allegations that you're holding explosive devices and making credible threats of mass violence? Explosive devices? I stepped onto my porch holding coffee and immediately had 6 officers visibly tense hands near weapons, eyes locked on my movement. Derek Walsh! A voice boomed through a megaphone. This is Lieutenant Morrison, Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. We need you to exit the structure with your hands visible and cooperate with our investigation. Luis's voice crackled through my phone. Derek, don't make any sudden moves, brother. Rebecca filed reports claiming you threatened to detonate explosives during tonight's meeting. She's got photos of you handling suspicious packages. The suspicious packages were bags of Quikrete. The witnesses were probably the same people who'd provided statements for her fraudulent psychiatric evaluation. But this time, Rebecca had overestimated law enforcement's gullibility. Sheriff Tom Davidson approached my porch cautiously, his expression more embarrassed than aggressive. Derek, I apologize for the circus. We received what appeared to be credible terrorist threat reports. I need you to consent to a property search so we can clear this situation. Search away, Sheriff. But first, watch this. I handed him a USB drive containing Rebecca's midnight arson attempt in 4K clarity, her son Brandon pouring gasoline and preparing to light it. Davidson's jaw clenched with visible fury. That's Brandon Mitchell committing arson on your property. Yes, sir, while his mother was simultaneously filing false reports claiming I was the arsonist. Interesting timing, wouldn't you say? Mr. Walsh, I owe you a direct apology. I've been compromised by political pressure. That ends now. This is witness tampering, false reports, and conspiracy against a law enforcement agency. While the tactical team spent 3 hours confirming that Quikrete was just Quikrete, Jennifer was filing emergency motions that would destroy what remained of Rebecca's credibility. False police reports, terrorist threat hoax, conspiracy to file fraudulent emergency reports, obstruction of justice, each one a federal crime carrying 5 to 10 years. By 9 a.m., news crews from Phoenix, Tucson, Flagstaff, and Albuquerque had descended. Rebecca, demonstrating the kind of tone-deaf arrogance that defines people before catastrophic downfall, positioned herself as the heroic community leader protecting innocent families. Standing in front of cameras with perfect makeup and practiced hairs, she painted a picture of a peaceful neighborhood terrorized by an unstable, violent outsider. This individual has threatened our children's safety, destroyed our community's sense of security, and now he's apparently prepared to commit mass violence rather than simply follow reasonable community standards. Rebecca sobbed into microphones with Oscar-caliber emotion. "We just want our families and neighborhood back." The performance was magnificent and being recorded as evidence for her criminal trial, but Rebecca's media strategy contained a fatal flaw. In her rush to appear sympathetic, she'd agreed to multiple live interviews without consulting attorneys, and live television doesn't allow editing out inconvenient truths. Channel 12's investigative reporter Sarah Bennett had done meticulous homework. During what Rebecca assumed would be a softball interview, Sarah casually mentioned the HOA's financial irregularities. "Mrs. Mitchell, public records show your association has collected approximately $420,000 in special assessments over 9 months from just 14 households. That's $30,000 per family. Can you explain specifically where that money was spent?" Rebecca's confident expression flickered. "Well, we've had substantial legal expenses defending our community. But the legal expenses listed in your public filings total only $31,000, Sarah interrupted, with journalistic precision. "Where did the other $389,000 go?" The pause lasted maybe 4 seconds on television. Rebecca's mouth opened and closed like a fish, drowning in air, while her brain manufactured an explanation that wouldn't constitute a confession. Those are confidential community financial matters." "Confidential?" Sarah's eyebrows rose. "Mrs. Mitchell, you personally posted these financial statements publicly on Facebook 3 weeks ago, and you're discussing this on live television while accusing your neighbor of terrorism. Surely financial transparency is relevant to your credibility." Rebecca's facade cracked. "I don't have to answer these ambush questions." "One more question, Mrs. Mitchell. Can you explain your husband Gregory Mitchell's $650,000 consulting fee from Desert Paradise Resort, the same resort that requires Mr. Walsh's property?" Rebecca's face went the color of sun-bleached bone. This interview is over. She ripped off her microphone and stormed away, but the damage was complete. Within 2 hours, the narrative had shifted entirely from dangerous hermit threatens community to HOA president accused of massive fraud, developer kickbacks, and filing false terror reports. Social media exploded with questions about Rebecca's financial management, her midnight activities, and the timing of her escalating accusations coinciding with multi-million-dollar development deals. By noon, 3 more HOA families had contacted Jennifer privately, offering to cooperate in exchange for protection from Rebecca's threatened foreclosures. As the last news van disappeared, I realized Rebecca had just committed professional suicide on live television while creating prosecutorial evidence. Tonight's community meeting would be less about her accusations and entirely about her explanations. The Sonoran Heights Community Center had never witnessed a gathering like this. 119 people crammed into a space designed for 75, with news cameras positioned along every wall and county officials occupying the front row. Rebecca stood at the podium like a general before a battle she didn't realize she'd already lost. Her PowerPoint was titled, "Protecting Sonoran Heights, Community Action Plan for Property Values and Family Safety." She dressed for what she thought would be Victory Immaculate designer suit, flawless makeup. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, clicking to a slide showing my workshop, "we gather tonight to address the clear and present danger that Derek Walsh represents to our peaceful, family-oriented community and our collective property values." I sat in the back row wearing my cleanest work jeans, holding a leather folder that contained enough legal explosives to level her entire empire. Jennifer sat beside me, glancing at her phone where federal prosecutors were sending real-time updates. Rebecca's presentation was masterful. Propaganda photos of my unauthorized industrial construction, screenshots of my threatening online presence, charts showing declining property values. "This individual owes our community $47,000 in accumulated violation fines," Rebecca announced, her voice rising with manufactured righteousness. "He has repeatedly threatened violence against families, attempted to intimidate our children, and just this morning was investigated by federal authorities for explosive devices and credible threats of mass casualty violence." The crowd murmured with fearful approval, good people who'd been fed steady lies for months. Furthermore, she continued, clicking to a financial slide, "Mr. Walsh's continued unlawful presence threatens a transformative economic development opportunity that could benefit every single family in this room. Desert Paradise Resort has offered our community partnership in a $75 million luxury project that would create hundreds of jobs and increase property values substantially." There it was, the real motivation finally confessed on record, captured by 5 news cameras. Rebecca had just admitted publicly that this entire harassment campaign was about clearing my land for developers and her personal commission. She opened the floor for community impact statements, and 5 rehearsed neighbors delivered tearful testimonies about feeling unsafe. The choreography was so synchronized, it looked like rehearsed theater. Then Rebecca made the miscalculation that would be played on repeat in news coverage for months. Does anyone else have concerns about this dangerous criminal element threatening our community? I stood slowly, my leather folder tucked under my arm. I do, actually. Rebecca's confident smile collapsed. You have no right to speak here. You're not a member of this community. Actually, Rebecca, I said, walking calmly toward the front while every camera swiveled to follow me, I think you'll find I have more rights in this room than anyone else present, including you. Especially you. The crowd's murmur shifted to confused silence. Rebecca's face was turning the color of desert sand. My name is Derek Walsh, I announced, my voice carrying to every corner, and I am the sole owner of the Sonoran Desert Water Company, which holds the senior appropriative water rights for this entire area, dating back to 1887, before Arizona was even a state. I opened my folder and removed Aunt Patricia's water rights certificates, holding them high for cameras to capture every detail of the territorial seals. I also own the exclusive access easement to this subdivision, the only legal road connecting these 49 homes to the county highway. My Aunt Patricia purchased these rights in 1996 and 2009. You all own your houses and the land directly beneath them. But you don't own water rights or legal access to reach your homes. The silence that followed was so absolute you could hear individual heartbeats and the distant hum of air conditioning. Then, the room detonated into chaos. Rebecca lunged for my documents like a drowning woman, but Sheriff Davidson stepped between us. That's impossible, Rebecca shrieked, her polished veneer shattering completely. This is our neighborhood. We own these properties. You're just some criminal making up lies. You own the structures and land parcels, Rebecca, I said calmly, spreading water certificates and easement documents across the podium like cards in a winning poker hand. But the water rights and access easement belong to me through inheritance. Every monthly payment you thought was going to municipal water service was actually going to Sonoran Desert Water Company, owned by my Aunt Patricia through a management company that obscured ultimate ownership. Sheriff Davidson stepped forward, his expression grim. Mrs. Mitchell, you've been collecting association fees while knowing or having a legal obligation to know that Mr. Walsh controls the water and access rights your development deal requires. That's fraud, conspiracy, possibly RICO violations. You can't do this to me, Rebecca screamed, her careful mask destroyed. I've spent years building this community. You're just some construction worker who doesn't belong here. Actually, I said, pulling out the resort development agreement, you've spent months committing federal crimes trying to steal property rights I legally own so you and your husband could collect a $650,000 commission. Without my water rights and access easement, your resort deal is impossible. You've been harassing the one person whose cooperation you absolutely needed. The crowd's anger shifted from me to Rebecca as implications settled in. She'd been stealing from them while lying about fundamental property infrastructure and framing an innocent man for crimes she and her family were committing. Patricia Donovan stood up with shaking hands, holding folders. Rebecca, I've been trying to get financial records for months. Where did our $420,000 in special assessments actually go? That's confidential. No, Patricia said, her accountant's voice cutting through with professional precision. I've been copying documents. None of your vendors have business licenses. None of the work was performed. You've been systematically stealing from us while threatening foreclosure. Sheriff Davidson pulled out handcuffs. Rebecca Mitchell, you're under arrest for wire fraud, embezzlement, filing false police reports, conspiracy to commit arson through your son, terrorist threat hoax, and several other charges federal prosecutors are still adding. As deputies restrained her, Rebecca's final scream echoed through the community center. You can't do this to me. I am this community. I built this. These people are nothing without me. That land is mine. Communities aren't built on theft, lies, and terrorism accusations, I said quietly. They're built on truth, cooperation, and people actually caring about each other. As federal agents entered to transport Rebecca to county jail, the news cameras captured everything, the perfect ending to a story about corruption exposed and justice served. But the community members were staring at me with a mixture of fear and hope, wondering what I would do with the power I now held. "I'm not here for revenge or exploitation," I announced to the room. "I'm here to offer partnership. Those of you who participated directly in harassment campaigns, filed false police reports, or committed criminal acts, you'll face legal consequences. Everyone else, your water rates are being reduced by 40%. And I'm establishing a cooperative ownership program where longtime residents can purchase community shares of the water and access rights at cost with zero-interest financing." The crowd's fear shifted to cautious relief as people realized I wasn't going to destroy them for Rebecca's crimes. As for the missing $420,000 in HOA funds, federal investigators are tracking every dollar. That money will be recovered through asset seizure and criminal restitution. Patricia Donovan stepped forward. "What about the resort development?" "No. I'm donating development restrictions to the Arizona Land Conservancy to ensure this desert remains protected. Your homes are safe, your water is secure, and your neighborhood won't become a luxury resort parking lot." The relief that washed through the room was almost physical. These were good people who'd been manipulated, stolen from, and terrified by a criminal masquerading as a community leader. As Rebecca was let out in handcuffs, still screaming about her rights, Jennifer leaned close to me. "You just gave up about $4 million in potential development sale revenue. I know, but I gained something worth more teaching my son that power should protect people, not exploit them. Aunt Patricia understood that for 29 years. Now I do too." The news cameras captured the aftermath. Neighbors thanking me, families crying with relief, Patricia Donovan organizing an emergency legitimate HOA election. It wasn't a perfect ending. It was messy, complicated, and would take years to fully resolve. But it was real, and it was just, and it was built on truth rather than lies. Sometimes, that's the only victory that actually matters.